Hey, Doug Greathouse here, your host of the Entrepreneur Journey podcast. And before we get into yet another amazing interview with an incredible entrepreneur where they share their secrets of success, their story, I wanted to tell you about the Profitable Business Program. It is a program that I've put together in conjunction with Jason Webb over at the Profitable Salesman. And it is a program if you are a course creator, a coach, or an entrepreneur looking to raise your monthly revenue in as little as 6 weeks. So I don't think there's too many people that wouldn't like to do that. So I'm going to quickly put up the roadmap right here. So you can check out some of the modules. We cover everything from goal setting so you can hit your goals much faster than you ever thought possible with the strategies that we give you, creating a magnetic offer that pulls the clients to you, marketing momentum where we pack in a lot of marketing strategy as well as done for you content. We do done for you email automations, done for you sales scripts, done for you lead magnets. And in addition to that, the profit pipeline, that's where we build 2 proven high converting funnels for you. All this within 6 weeks. After that, we teach you where to get and show you the strategies to get the traffic through the traffic flow system, both organic and paid strategies. We cover those. And in the Revenue Rocket, Jason takes you through how to properly close sales, to the presentation, to the close, to how to handle objections. That's a masterclass in sales. And then last but not least, we're helping you pull in all these clients, right? How do you keep them? So the Success Amplifier is about scaling and also about client retention. So we cover that in the last module. So if you're interested in learning more about this, the link is below. And welcome everyone to another episode of the Entrepreneur Journey. I have the distinct pleasure of having my new friend on the show. Her name is Francine Sinclair, and she is a personal branding expert for faith-based entrepreneurs. That's what I'm going to tell you about her. I'm going to let her fill in a little bit more. She's so much more than that. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about that. And then we're going to get into her story, have some fun, and get into her expertise as well. So Francine, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Well, hello. First of all, I'll start with the personal part. I live in Tampa, Florida, and I am a mom of a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old. I'm a wife as well. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, via Bergen County, New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, but then I was raised in Puerto Rico. Then I came back to the States. So I speak Spanish fluently and, of course, English and a little bit of French. So that is me personally. I was a stay-at-home mom for, I want to say 13 years. Wow. Because, I have a son who has severe food allergies. A lot of you know that part of my story and how I'm working on that. And I homeschooled my kids for 5 years. So I'm a homeschool veteran, a stay-at-home mom veteran. Yes, I did have a career before I got married and had kids. I used to work for the Royal Bank of Canada. And after I finished my homeschooling career, I'd say, I decided to get into business, into the online space, which was teaming with excitement. And so,
well, I don't want you to get into all your story right now because we're going to dive into that in a minute. And it seems like you're going in that direction. I want to kind of leave that piece for a little bit later. But I do have some follow-up questions on a couple of things that you just said. So some things I didn't know about you. You have a 17-year-old. Is that your son?
That's my son. Yep.
Nice. The one with the food allergies.
Yep.
Okay. I have a 17-year-old daughter. So is he graduating high school this year?
Yep. He's graduating this year. He's a senior.
So is my daughter. And we are doing the whole college thing. So it is crazy.
It's scary. I'm like, oh my God, my last kid is leaving. I'm going to be an empty nester, officially old.
And I would have no idea that you and I may be around the same age. So yeah.
For Gen Xers, leave it there.
Yeah. And you mentioned Tampa, Florida. Like this, if you're listening to this later, this may not be relevant, but a hurricane just came through Florida. How are you? Obviously you have power.
We dodged a bullet again. I'm in Tampa. We're just still starting the rough part of the hurricane season. So every time around this time of year, I am sweating bullets, but it missed us here in Tampa. It hit a little bit further up north, and we got lucky this time, so yeah. Praise God for that.
Yeah. I call my sister because my sister lives near Jacksonville. So just making sure that she's safe because it really hit more that area. Like
Yeah.
she's on close to the other coast, but still, saw a lot of flooding on the news.
Yeah, a lot of flooding down here too, but yeah, that's the price of living in Florida.
Yeah, I lived there. This you probably didn't know about me. I lived in Florida throughout my childhood, from like 8 years old until I was 18. I lived in the Fort Myers area. So
And so then you went to college and left? Is that what happened?
I went to live with my sister and delayed my college for a year, and then I went to college.
Oh,
So,
okay. Got it.
Yeah, my sister lived in Kentucky. It was a different cultures for sure from Florida and Kentucky.
I've never been to Kentucky, but I can only imagine.
Yeah. All right, let's have some fun. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and based on some things that I know about you, I know you'll be able to answer these pretty well. What is your favorite Bible verse?
So I had to write it down. It's Mark 16:15. And he said unto them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature.
And we're going to go into why that is really relevant here in a second too. So I really like that verse myself. So yeah. So I think this is a fun question. What makes up a perfect day for you?
A perfect day for me is when I have accomplished, doesn't have to be a lot of work, but the work that I've done for my business has been satisfying. I've gotten work done. I don't feel like I have so many things left undone for the day. And then I have time for my personal pursuits, time for family, and meet at least one. And I have met at least one new person that day. I love meeting new people. So
nice.
A perfect day would have that in there as well.
That I am much along the same lines. I sometimes tend to be a little bit, I'm really driven, so I probably work too much. But a perfect day for me is when I don't work the whole day, right?
Yeah.
Where I actually make the time, where I have the time scheduled to do the things that I like to do and spend time with my family and things like that. There's something else you said. Oh, meeting one new person a day. I love doing that as well. I'm all about relationships, and the more relationships that I can build, and it's one of those things that fills me up, right?
I love it. And it's like the way I see it, like that Forrest Gump saying, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And a lot of people feel like, no, you shouldn't do that because you can waste a lot of time. But there's a way of doing it where it really makes it worthwhile. And I enjoy meeting new people.
Yeah, I am the same way. You don't know what you're going to get. Opportunity, like I don't think a lot of people understand what relationship opportunity is, right? Like they don't understand the return on relationships. Like it's not always transactional, for one,
Exactly.
right? You may meet someone that is going to introduce, like if you're not married, maybe you're going to meet somebody that introduces you to your spouse,
right?
Or there's all kinds of opportunities that can come from building relationships.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing.
It's kind of like playing chess, 3-dimensional chess or whatever, right? I think a lot of people just focus on what am I going to get from that person? What can I offer you? You can offer me. But I've met people on social media who have become friends that I've actually gone on to meet in person. Yeah. And so that for me is worthwhile. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think a term, not a term, but a word that I like to throw out a lot is margin, right? And margin in your time, margin in relationships. If you go into a relationship and these are the guidelines, this is what I'm looking for, and you have no margin, then you're really shrinking your opportunities, because you're not really exploring where the relationship could go, right? So that's a tip for all of you out there building relationships. Leave some margin. Don't always make it a transactional.
Yeah. Build your network. Network, like Daniel Andrews says, network is more of a noun than a verb.
Yes.
Build your network.
That's right. So a little self-promotion on my part here with this question. Oh, actually, I skipped ahead. I was going to skip ahead. This is another fun question. Do you think CEOs should wear suits?
I think so. It depends it depends on the company and the context, right? So if it's a large company, I think so. If you're a CEO of a company with 5 people and you're working out of your house, no. But it depends on the context. I love suits. So
Okay.
I don't ever want to see those go away.
Nice. Well, I only ask because I mean it's the online world's been around for a long time, and the trend has been like one of my best friends owns a very large company, and I can count on my hands in my relationship. I've known him for like 15 years. The amount of times that I've seen him in a suit, and it's probably been like 3 times out of 15 years, and one of those was a wedding. So yeah, so but he's very accomplished, but you would never, like, I think if you, it's one of those things, if you really want somebody to know that you're the boss, maybe you wear a suit, right? Like he's so unassuming that he's the boss, right? But he is. But
yeah, kind of like Steve Jobs and all those guys. I know that is, it just depends on the person, on the personality. If I were the CEO of a large company, I'd probably wear a suit, not because I want everybody to know the boss, but it's kind of like play the part in a way, kind of dress. Maybe it's just old school, who knows?
and maybe and I do think it ties a lot back into you as a person. If it makes you, if it helps you feel more confident and helps, like sometimes they say the clothes make the man, right? And or the woman in that instance, right? So if it helps you with your confidence or anyway, just the way you feel, if you just feel better wearing a suit, then all means all power to you, right? Do it that way. But I think the opposite is true too. If you can still command the respect of your team and not wear a suit, it's all about company culture too. That could also be tied to company culture. So
company culture for sure. Yes, a more traditional company, yes, a startup or something that was a startup and started with that culture, maybe not. So
yeah. You only have so much money, and maybe not spend it on suits, maybe spend it on stuff to get the business moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I didn't expect to have that much fun with that question. That was good. Now back to shameless self-promotion here. We have a book, Danica Treble. I'm not sure if you know her, and I have a book coming out.
Wait, say that name again.
Danica Treble.
I know who she is, yes.
Okay, her and I have a book that we put together with a bunch of other authors called Dear Younger Me, I Wish You Knew. And basically it's letters to the younger selves as entrepreneurs. What would you tell yourself now that you've come so far on your journey to your younger self? Would you tell yourself be prepared? What would you caution your younger self about? Like, would you tell them all the great stuff? It's just really open-ended, right? What would you tell your younger self? So in that vein, the question I have for you is, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
Boy, I'd be around 18 or 19, and I'd say this internet stuff coming out, learn it, understand it, and create a business out of it. If I had started all the way back then, oh my goodness. Because when I started hearing about the internet, I remember being in college and a professor talking about this information superhighway, and for the life of me, I could not understand what he was talking about, because for me, the information superhighway was a library and the Encyclopedia Britannica. So I just didn't get it, but I didn't, inquire more. I wasn't that curious about it. I'm like, whatever. So yeah.
For me, the seed was planted back then. Because I imagine we're of a similar age, was planted back then. And I actually, when I went to college, I went for computer information systems. But it was antiquated, like compared to today, that's antiquated knowledge.
Oh yeah. The black screen with the numbers and the letter.
And then I went and got I went into corporate job. I had a corporate job for a long time, and then my best friend had been working for a web design firm for a while, and he's like, "We should start our own web design firm." And I'm like, "You realize that when I went to college for it's not where it is now." But lo and behold, here we are today. So it stuck after that. So really,
I wish cool. I would have known. Even if I would have just caught on to it back in 2008 when Facebook came out. Okay, but
it's funny because I see myself as one of the Twitter pioneers, but I'm not big on Twitter. I never use it now. Like, I was one of the first people, probably when they had in the low thousands, right? People on Twitter when it started. I was one of those people. But then I just kind of abandoned it. And I think it was pretty much when Facebook came around, I abandoned Twitter.
And you went to Facebook kind of thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting how you jump from to different technologies and different platforms.
Yeah. Platforms. It depends on what your goals are and your personality. I'm very much a Facebook and a LinkedIn person. Instagram, I've tried. I just don't love it for me, for myself. Twitter, I go on there to find out what's happening. I don't engage, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Um, I want to put a bookmark in this conversation, because I want to come back to this about different platforms,
mm,
because I think it's going to be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to our audience. But right now, I want to ask you. I want to do one of my favorite parts of the Entrepreneur Journey podcast, and that's where we ask the fill in the blank question. So your fill in the blank question is: your number one responsibility as an entrepreneur is blank.
is to deliver on my promises to my
Ooh,
clients.
nice. Yeah,
To me,
because
that's
if you
my
do
number
that,
one responsibility. Because I'm one of my biggest values is, integrity, trust. And so I pride myself in being someone who I grew up with my grandfather a lot of the time. So he always talked to me about your word is golden. And that really, really sunk in. And so I always, always, always make it happen one way or the other. And if I can't, you have to be straightforward and let people know, be honest and deliver on your promises. To me, I cannot never break those. Those are the golden rules for me in business.
yeah,
So
yeah, I so agree with that. Everything falls back to that, right? Because reputation has value. Uh, if you want to grow a business, if you grow your relationships and grow your reputation, your business will grow, and you do that by delivering on your promises, right?
yeah, what you said you would do. And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking how the online business community has gotten such a bad rap because, we can't control what everybody does. And so many people don't deliver on those promises, and then it reflects bad on those who do. So
Yeah, yep, very, very, very true. So the way you treat your clients goes a long, long way. That I love that answer. Thank you. I was hoping, like I always get a great answer to the fill in the blank question, and that was one of those. So that is
I
awesome.
had to write it down because I'm like, sometimes I don't remember everything.
So now let's dive into your story. You started to dive into it a little bit when we started. So let's talk about how you got into entrepreneurship. You said you had been working corporate for a while, but kind of tell us the twists and turns and everything that you want to reveal about your entrepreneur journey.
So it was 2019, probably around November 2019. This is before the world changed, right? And I was at the tail end of the homeschooling journey. And I was, well, I need to do something with my life. Now that, my stay-at-home mom and homeschooling mom is just kind of coming to an end. And I went to school for journalism, public relations, communication. So I said, maybe I could do something with this. And I was scrolling Facebook, saw somebody's ad about, oh, you can do social media for other people who have businesses and work from home. That was very appealing to me. So I bought the course. It was $1,000 course, and I joined it, and I'm like, well, this sounds like a really good idea. So I contacted a friend who's an attorney, started work. Well, actually, no, what am I talking about? I contacted another friend. That's not an attorney. That wasn't an attorney. That she had a business, and she said, well, you're really good with social media. Would you help me here? So I started helping them, kind of not even really knowing. I mean, my only experience with social media was I was always on Facebook. But slowly I said, I think I'm really liking this. But I need to get more clients. So what, and people were talking about ways to get clients online, but I really wanted to work with people in my local community, local businesses. And the way that I thought would work, since a lot of people, it was my understanding that everybody was doing everything online now via emails and everything, that the way I could stand out was by cold calling, which not a lot of people like to do. And I could understand why. I had never done it before. And it was so scary when I first made those few phone calls. But slowly, I was making like 20 phone calls a day. Slowly but surely, I got 2 clients within like a 2-month span from making cold calls. And I never thought I could do that. Then I said, I'm going to push this even more. So I started doing cold calls, going in person, just showing up out of the blue to the business. that was another level of scary. But actually, it started to become quite fun, because the look of shock, people aren't used to that anymore. So it was kind of like, this is like from a blast from the past, like, what is this? And so I actually got a client that way as well. He's an attorney, and it was just by knocking on his door and saying what I did, and it started to become fun. I was like, why don't people do this more? But then, as you know, COVID came around. That completely, I tried calling people were not in the offices anymore. Forget about going in person, because nobody wants to see you. And so then I had to kind of pivot into the other digital strategies, which I was like, oh my gosh, so how do you do this in DMs? How do you like engage with people? How do you, and that, but I had to learn how to do it because we were locked down. And so that's how it started for me. But slowly I started to kind of niche into just from doing just general social media for entrepreneurs into working with more of the subject matter expert. And the reason why I gravitated towards a subject matter expert was because of the depth that they can go into within their content. Instead of going like a mile wide and an inch deep, they were able to, yes, go that mile wide, but they were able to go a mile deep as well. But those people usually don't have the time to do that. So the way I loved to do it was by repurposing content that they already had, and then also using a journalistic approach in the way of, from my studying journalism, of interviewing them, kind of like not a public facing interview, but interviewing them, having specific questions, based on where I'm trying to go with their content, and having them get the information from the horse's mouth and just repurpose that. And so that proved to be effective, for them to having a done for you service that they don't have to create the content, but they're getting the benefits out of it. So that's where I kind of moved. And then, and just in the past few months, I recently had a calling to take exactly those skills that I was using for the subject matter experts and people in the online space to help faith-driven Christian CEOs, executives, and business leaders. So using those skills for that purpose to spread the gospel.
Wow. I love your story. And it's weird. I don't know if I have this question later, but I kind of want to dive into this a little bit here, because you and I feel like God puts people in people's paths, right? I feel like I think you might have, through your way that you go about things, you messaged me, maybe. I'm not sure exactly how we connected. Maybe you messaged me, I'm not sure, but we have built this relationship, and now we're going to be on each other's podcasts. I'm going to be on your podcast soon.
Yeah.
And what is they call 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever it is. The author of the book above, you have read her book, Maury Renee, and I have been friends with her for a long time, and we are all on very similar missions.
Yes.
To help people share their faith in their business.
Right. So, which is a hard thing for many people, thing to do, But I'm just learning that because I'm a new Christian. I've been only a Christian for 3 years, and it's only been in the past, I want to say 8 months to a year, that I actually started reading the Bible and praying and getting this inspiration from the Holy Spirit, which I know you and I had a conversation, and I told you that when I was in the secular world and I would hear people talking about God would talk to them, or the Holy Spirit told them something, I'd say, they're making that up. That has never happened to me. they are totally making it, well, of course it didn't happen to me because I didn't have a relationship with God, right?
That's right.
And so, I think that there's a way that we can share our faith in a way that is authentic. It shows the real you, and in a vulnerable way that that draws people to you instead of pushing people away. Since I came from I'm still very fresh in my mind how I used to think as a secular or non-believer, how when I would see people who are Christians talk about their faith, I know kind of what are the things that kind of push people away. And what are the way that I came to Christ was because I saw the opposite of that. When we were locked down, I saw pieces of content here and there, and it was mostly people speaking in the first person about personal stories that kind of planted that seed and got me thinking in the back of my head. And I don't know how long it took, but eventually that seed started growing, which is what helped me convert, but I felt like I did it myself. Nobody pushed me. Nobody threatened me with, I'm going to hell, stuff like that. Yeah. So I believe that as Christians in the online marketplace, there's a lot that we can do to reach out to other people.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. There was something in what you just said that I wanted to comment on it, but I was so busy just listening to what you said.
I know, that's why I try to take notes when I'm doing my podcast, and I suck at that too.
I actually remember. It's not a question for you. It's just that I want to applaud you, because you are as you mentioned, you are a somewhat new Christian, right? And sometimes it takes Christians a very long time to get to that point where you are, to where they're comfortable sharing their faith. Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're in church for years upon years before they actually feel like, okay, I'm ready to share my faith. And so I applaud you for already being there. That is amazing.
It was a long time coming, and I think that what my pivoted completely to now help Christian men, mostly over 50. Don't tell me why. That was inspiration of the Holy Spirit. Christian men over 50 who are business leaders, do that, not just talk about their business acumen and talk about their, how successful they've been, but talk about, spread the good news and talk about their testimony. And why I think that's important, why I'm so passionate about, building a personal brand is, I just wrote a post about this yesterday, that we all have a personal brand, even if you don't know it, because today we have the internet. People can put your name in there, and whatever bits and pieces, incoherent or whatever is out there, that's the impression that people are going to have of you, right? And it is your personal brand, but we can control that narrative in a way by the content that we put out there, how we put ourselves out there, to build our own personal brand. And I have a story about how I came to that, but I'll let you talk and then keep going.
Oh no, I was very, very interested. And I'm hoping we're going to get to that. So another question that I like to ask is our secret question. So you may have already talked about this a little bit. So if you have, you can just kind of embellish on it a little bit more. So what is the secret to joy and purpose in your business?
For me right now, because I'm in a total different place, the secret is something it took me a long time to understand, which was relinquishing that power, relinquishing, putting myself in God's hands. So relinquishing control. Mm-hmm. I could not understand that for a long time. And when people say turning yourself over, putting yourself in God's hand and allowing him to work through you, I used to feel like that meant, oh, God is in control of everything and I have to do nothing. I'll just sit back. I'm like, that sounds like a lazy man's recipe. Not wanting to take responsibility for anything, but that's not what it is, right? No. And I'm not sure I can explain it well, but I have experienced it. And when you do relinquish that control and you make God your CEO, like Renee, there's such a sense of lightness and joy and purpose that I was not able to have before this. So
that is amazing. I was on Maureen's show, and I talked about my experience after reading her book. And I forget the exact question, but she asked me, but it was similar to your response. Like, even in the down times of my business, I still have joy and I still have faith, because I know I'm not ultimately in control. God's in control, right? I'm still doing what God wants me to do. I'm still operating, right? I'm not sitting back and, okay, God, go to work. We're partners on this, where he's the CEO and I'm just kind of, going along with it. So it's just like you said, you're not meant to just sit and wait on God. You're supposed to be in partnership with him moving forward, right? Where he's guiding you.
Because there's a part in the Bible that says, a verse in the Bible, I still say part, that says acts without work, or work without, what is it? Is that action? You tell me what it says.
Faith without, I'm not sure the exact phrase.
Faith without works. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And that's not to be confused with you cannot get saved by works alone. That you cannot be saved just by works. You have to go through Jesus. So I know there's some people that believe differently, but that's how I believe. Is that Jesus paid it all. Jesus paid it all. You don't have to work for your salvation.
Yeah. And I used to think that you had to do things. It was only till recently I interviewed Jay Lee, my friend Jay Lee, who used to be a pastor, that he said all these things he did. And I'm like, and I asked him on the podcast, so have you earned heaven? And he looks at me like, well, it was a sincere question. I thought, he's like, you don't have to. He explained that exactly, and now I understand it. But even like 3 months ago, I didn't even know that. So yeah, I'm completely learning all of this as I go.
Yeah, imagine all that weight for people that believe that. How could you ever do enough work? You just couldn't. It would like be too much to bear. So.
There's no way you could earn your way to heaven.
Especially like in our sin nature, right? We're not perfect. If we were perfect, we might be able to earn heaven, but we're not perfect.
Every day, that fight of what they say, flesh and the spirit. Every day.
Yeah. Oh, well, awesome. So let's go into your expertise a little bit, and maybe we're going to go back into that bookmark that I mentioned earlier. So as a social media content expert, what do you find most business uggers? Let me rephrase that. See, I don't really edit these parts of the podcast because I think it's fun. Anyway, so as a social media content expert, what do you feel gets most business owners stuck when it comes to creating content consistently?
I feel like, well, I know that a lot of people just get stuck on what to say. And the reason is because they don't take time to brainstorm their content pillars. That's one thing, right? The second thing is, especially I find this in people who are our age and older, the vulnerability aspect. We didn't grow up with these internet kids don't think anything of whipping out their phone and putting themselves on video. Some people, I find that for me, that's a struggle, and putting all my business out there is just rough so that, those are the biggest things. Just not knowing what to say because you haven't thought out your content pillars, and not really not knowing to what degree you should be transparent, like what is too much and what is not enough, right? Some people who are more introverted, they tend to say, be really superficial. And I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I'm a mix of an extrovert and an introvert. And so I always pulled back more. And then people who are extroverts, they sometimes do too much information. And so how do you balance that? People have a fear of that and just saying something that's going to affect them down the road, And we all know how cancel culture has also been. Once that started, a lot of people were like, whoa, I'm not going to say anything. And I'm going to get banned. And so it's tough
Yeah, it's navigating a lot, and I'm just like you. I used to think I was an introvert, a complete introvert, until I started being an extrovert, right? To until I started putting myself out there,
Uh-huh.
I realized that being an extrovert is actually what fills me up. Building the relationships, having people around me, and having conversations that like that fills my bucket. Like when I'm withdrawn and I'm all by myself and doing work that's no one else is around, it empties my bucket.
It does.
So
Oh, I think it can be a mix because I love being by myself too. I like many people,
yeah,
but I cherish that time to myself. No music, nothing, just a book. So yeah, I guess we put ourselves in. I think I'm a mix of. I can be an extrovert, but I'm also tend to be more of an introvert for sure.
yeah. There, and my family will tell you there are times that I like to be alone.
You like to be alone, yeah.
Yeah.
And so back to your question, I think that also people, all of those elements, just not knowing, everybody wants, so everybody wants to stand out. So how to go about that, how to go about standing out. And so it all comes down to, if you're an entrepreneur, you're in the online space, the wise thing to do is to build that personal brand, because you as a person, because you are a human, you are different than everybody else. So you have to bring that out. And so I'm pretty passionate about that because like I was telling you before, when you don't control the narrative of what's out there, it's done for you. And it doesn't have to be that way. And let me tell you a story. It was 2007. And I was, a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and I get a phone call from my dad. I get a phone call from my dad on a day. It was probably 2006. I'm not sure. And my father tells me, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know that I sold the rights to my life story, and they are going. Universal Studios is going to be making a movie about my life." And I was like, "Oh," I didn't believe it until I actually saw. I can't remember what I saw. If it was, I don't know what I saw, but something I saw that actually made me, oh, this is real. And let me tell you why I was stunned. Because my father, his name was Frank Lucas, because he passed away. He was one of the most notorious kingpins in New York City back in the 70s. Like, he used to import heroin from Southeast Asia. And so he was very notorious. And so Universal Studios bought his life rights, and they made a movie called American Gangster that came out in 2007.
With Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, right? So Denzel Washington was going to play. So that's what I saw. When I saw him send me a picture of Denzel Washington, that's like, okay, this is real. And you got to understand that this is something that I never talked to anybody about when I was growing up. I never wanted anybody to know. So the fact that this was happening was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, what? I live, in the suburbs. I'm a stay-at-home mom. People know me one way. What is this? So, as he's out there, everybody's telling his story. He's telling his story. I noticed that the thing that was most exploited, okay, were the negative traits. So Hollywood and the media always wanted to exploit the negative traits, like make it like he was into this monster thing and glorifying the negative aspects. And I felt like, wait, hold on. There needs to be a balanced view that this person did these things, but he's also a human and he had a family. But, the only thing you would see out there were rumors about his family, his children. They were all lies and negative. So I felt like I had to jump into the spotlight to give that balanced view. Not only that, and make sure people knew another side, but I also felt like I had to take control of what was being said about me.
Yeah.
like my personal brand. I didn't want this story that they were making to cast a shadow upon me and my legacy and my life. I had to take control and bring out my personal story, so that I can control that narrative. And the way that I did that was I brought it from the angle of, well, yeah, that's all great, all that money and all this stuff, but guess what? As the child of these people, my mother, my father, I suffered a great deal, because then I became a child of incarcerated parents. And so I brought attention to that. And so I was able to control that. And so that's why I'm so passionate about, personal branding and controlling your narrative. Don't let it just run away from you. You have a lot of power to decide how what's said about you.
Wow. Learned something very interesting about you that I did not know. That is amazing. And I now it all ties together when you, and that goes into being able to tell your story, right? So you can see what brought you to where you are now, like why you're so passionate about this, right? Because it was something that was done in a negative way when you were a child, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is super cool. So so for those of you listening, control your narrative, right? Because people are going to make assumptions unless you tell them otherwise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and people think they don't have any stories to tell. Goodness, you have thousands of stories to tell. You just have to brainstorm and match your stories to a message. And that's not hard to do once you get the hang of it.
yes. I think we do need to mention something in this is let's go back to the integrity and authenticity, right? Control your narrative, but still stay authentic, right? Don't create a narrative that's not the right narrative. That's not the correct narrative.
Correct, because people do that too, for sure.
Yep.
Be authentic. Yep. Level of transparency. You don't have to tell the stories that you don't want to tell, because if people feel like, do I have to say everything about? No, there are stories that are only you are only for you to know. You don't have to tell everything.
Yep. Yeah. So let's go back. So I'm going to bring that bookmark back about the different platforms, because here's where a lot of entrepreneurs are too, and why I feel like they're stuck, because they feel like they have to be everywhere. Right? They have to be omnipresent. And even when they're just starting out, they feel like they have to be on every platform, right? And let's just talk about why that's not the case, right? Let me share your perspective, and then maybe I'll add on to that.
Well, because first of all, you're going to gravitate towards a certain platform more than the other. Second thing is, your type of client might be more on one platform than the other. So that's a place to start, of course. But then the third thing is, you only have a certain amount of time. And again, bringing that, you want to go deep instead of wide, because that's where you're going to get traction, when you go deep instead of wide. So if you're on 5 platforms and trying every day to post and get, you can post on all 5 platforms, but where is it that you are going to live? Where is it that you're going to engage and comment and interact with people? And that's, you will gain a lot more traction if you focus your efforts on one, unless, at least until you can hire a team that, you know, but it's all, there's also something to say about the legitimacy of your interactions. I never comment for people that I create content for. I told them I do not comment because I'm not you. And it's important to maintain the legitimacy of your interactions, because when people interact with you, they want to hear from you, not from somebody in the background making stuff up. So I was going to say, you can start to focus on other platforms when you have the bandwidth to do so, right? When you're starting out, you go deep on one platform. And this goes back to your repurposing, right? That place where you're going deep, you can repurpose that content onto other platforms, right? And that's how you get to be on other platforms, but you're really focusing on one. Right. So much easier to repurpose content that has meat on the bones versus superficial stuff. It's so hard to repurpose superficial content.
Yeah, I like to refer to all the millionaire YouTubers, right? You think they focused on one platform, they focused on YouTube, and that's how they built their brand. And they really didn't venture out. Like some of their stuff may be repurposed, like reels and things on other platforms, but their bread and butter is YouTube.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
And I know people who their bread and butter is LinkedIn, and they do great, but they've stayed there, consistent, engaged, optimize their profiles. There's so many things you have to do on each platform to maximize the impact. So that's what gets a lot of people also messed up. Like, well, I got to do all this work. No, just
right.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to switch gears again a little bit, and let's talk about being believers. I'm a firm believer that all things are orchestrated by God, and it's very interesting how God has placed each of us in our path. Oh, we actually talked about this a little bit, so I'm going to edit this part out. So if you're watching live, this is going to be edited out because we've kind of covered this ground. see, this is how I do.
That's why you have editing.
So my next question for you is, what is your advice for entrepreneurs that are hesitant to share their faith in content, especially if they are a personal brand? So we touched on this a little bit earlier. Can you expand on that?
So what is my advice? My advice is, the verse that I read at the beginning that said that Jesus said that our job is to spread the good news everywhere, right? And I think that how we do that is going to vary depending on our businesses and our personality. But what you don't want to do is hide things because you're trying to be a culture chameleon or whatever it is you're trying to do, because you're trying to get ahead. Because to me, I did that, at the beginning, trying to, when I first became Christian, I don't want to be seen as a Jesus freak because it's bad for business. People are gonna be turned off. And then after a long while, I realized that what I was doing actually was denying Jesus to get ahead. Whatever that looks like to you, right? And
That's
so
a strong statement.
I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to risk my entire business, everything I have, for Jesus, because he did that for me. And so I know that when I speak truth, inevitably it's going to offend people, because people will hate you when you speak the truth. You can't help that. But the only thing that you can control is how you say it. And you say it in the most lovingly way possible. And also leveraging your life, you as a person, your personal stories, to speak in the first person. Because when you speak in the first person about your life, about your story, usually people aren't going to see anything wrong with that. But you do have to speak the truth. And what I'm seeing is a lot of Christians are hiding that. They don't want to because they have bills to pay. But you also have to take in mind, are you a nominal Christian, which is in name only, or are you a committed Christian? And when you are a committed Christian, you have to count the cost. And there is a cost, and nobody said it would be easy. Nobody said people were going to like you. You may be, chances are people are going to hate. Some people are going to really just hate what you're saying. And people are going to follow you. And that's what we're really scared of. But the more you become convicted and committed in your faith, it's not going to matter, because the only opinion you're going to care about is God's opinion.
Yes. So much. That is spot on for me. And I like to think, if you're trying to appeal to everyone anyway, you're really appealing to no one, right? And the people that hate you, take that, because think about the people that you're drawing to you, people that are drawing to you for the good of, for his glory, right? And that's really what it's all about. Haters hate. They're going to hate. No matter what.
Yeah. So, and some entrepreneurs feel like, well, my ideal audience is not necessarily Christians. A lot of Christians don't just work with Christian people. We don't want to be in a silo, right?
Right.
Because that's part of the thing. You want to reach other people who haven't heard the good news, or unbelievers. But one thing you don't want to do is hide who you are, and they'll come anyway. They will.
Yep. If you do it the right way, and I've experienced this, you will have unbelievers start to be part of your network, and you will always be able to not amplify, but show yourself as a Christian, right? Through the words that you say, the way that you treat people, not
Mhm.
not Bible thumping, as they used to say in
Right.
the old days, right? Not Bible thumping, just being a good Christian, right? Just showing how God has affected your life and how it has caused you to interact with others, right?
Yeah.
So
You're showing the example, trying to mirror Christ's character, which is a difficult for us, but people will be drawn to that and they'll be like, I want to be like that. I want some of
yeah,
that,
yeah. How where do you find that joy? Let me
Yeah,
tell
like,
you about it.
what kind of drug is that you're on? I want some of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, this has been an amazing interview, Francine. Thank you so much for. I love this. Every time I do this, I feel like I have a new friend. We were friends before this interview, but I learn more about you, right? So our relationship and friendship grows. So I love that we're now connected like that. I'm going to continue to follow your journey because I love what you're doing, and we're going to possibly even collaborate in the future. That would be awesome. So
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
I want do you have any place for the audience to go? Do you have anything where audience can find out more about you or what you got
Yeah.
going on?
Just go to my website that I'm working on. The about page is horrible. It's got nothing about my story. So you guys talk about building in public, being transparent. When you were like, you don't want to tell your story. Like, I love telling other people's stories, but I don't want to tell mine because mine is like really ugly. and you kind of hide that. And so my old about page is still there. You can go see it now if you hear this in time and see. And then go back next week and see what the difference when you actually put your story in there. So my website is francineSinclair.com, and you can find me there, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm getting a lot more active on LinkedIn, building a community there, but I'm always on Facebook as well, because Facebook to me is like my living room, the frat party.
Yep.
And it's where like all the buddy buds have known me for a long time are, and then LinkedIn is feels a little bit more professional to me. So, but I'm on both of them, so you can find me either way.
Nice. Well, we'll put those links to your website, to those social platforms below, so that people can check that out. Like I said, I'm going to continue to follow you and keep this relationship going because I love what you're doing, what you're all about, your story. It is all inspiring. So thank you once again for being a part of this Entrepreneur Journey episode.
Thank you, Doug.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And until next time, keep moving forward.